Are you guys keeping up with Dark Side of the Ring? Do you guys know what that is? Dark Side of the Ring is this show, and it could be current. I don't know. I just found it, so I watched it on demand. For all I know, this got put out a couple of months ago, and for all I know, it got put out yesterday. But if you guys like ESPN's 30 for 30, like the one they did on Ric Flair, and HBO did one on Andre the Giant, but if you like that, then you'll like Dark Side of the Ring. I'm quite sure that's exactly who they got their inspiration from. They went out and made an alike product and put a different name on it. Narrated by Mick Foley, by Mankind, and it just looks at a couple of stories of wrestling, but one of the ones it did was the Montreal Screwjob. Montreal Screwjob, for any of you guys that don't know. Okay, real quick synopsis. Bret Hart is doing a deal with WCW. He is about to leave the WWE. He does this above board. He tells Vince McMahon, he gets approval, and he goes and does a deal with Eric Bischoff that would send him to Atlanta. Okay. Vince gives his blessing, but there's one problem. Bret Hart is Vince's sitting reigning champion. So Vince needs to take the belt off of Bret. There's no time to take the belt off of Bret. They've got a big event coming up. It's Bret versus Shawn Michaels. That's going to be on a Sunday. Bret is to appear on WCW television on Monday. Bret would like to just win the championship, give it back to Vince, kill his story. Hey, let me create a new storyline for you, Vince, which is that I relinquish the title and you can now figure out who's going to get this vacant title, and I'll just go over to WCW. Vince is like, oh yeah, I don't know about that, When the reality is Vince knows full well, man, I can't do that. I can't send you to the competitor with that much wind behind your back. I can't promote you. I have to demote you before I send you to a rival promotion company. And secondly, I'm not going to kill my whole division and leave us looking like fools with no champion. That doesn't make any sense, Bret. But instead of spelling this out for Bret, Vince just kind of ho-hummed and said, I don't like the idea. Well, all of a sudden, there's no time left. They are out of time. They're in Montreal, which is Bret's hometown, which somehow was very relevant to the story. Bret did not think he should have to lose to Shawn Michaels, who was also his enemy behind the scenes. His real life, they didn't get along. But he also did not think that he should have to drop the strap in Montreal for any reason. And Vince is going, man, what are you talking about? I just helped you get a huge, lucrative contract. Huge, with my rival. I helped you do that. I got to have the belt back. Bret's not willing to play ball. So the Montreal Screwjob was essentially, they're in Montreal. Bret Hart's finishing hold is a submission technique known as a sharpshooter. The final sequence of the match was to be Shawn Michaels putting Bret in the sharpshooter, his own move, and then Bret reverses it, putting Shawn in it. Shawn taps out, Bret wins. Bret relinquishes the title, packs his bag, and goes to Atlanta the next day to appear on WCW. That's how Bret thought this was going to go. Vince knows it can't go that way. I can't get you to agree to anything else. I got a sold out arena. I got this on pay-per-view, and everybody's been promised this match. I'm giving them the match. By the way, when Shawn puts you in the sharpshooter, I'm going to make the referee call for the bell. That is going to appear to the viewing audience that you surrendered. You verbally surrendered to the referee. Even though you didn't, I'm going to make it appear that you did. Ring the bell, play Shawn Michaels music, put the belt on him, and you're going to go away, and I'm going to get on with business. And it never should have come to this point, but this is the way we're going to have to do it. Because I've promised the audience, I promised our television audience, we're moving forward with this belt. I can't get you to play along. I'm going to make you play along. Absolutely, without question, and should not be a debate, the right move by Vince. It would be nice if he could have done it above board, which he tried to do. He tried to go to Bret and go, look, I got to have the title. You've only got one match left. It happens to be with Shawn. I don't give a damn about your guys' personal beef. Business-wise, you pass the torch to Shawn. By the way, enjoy your $3 million a year contract working for Ted over in Atlanta. That's the way that should have gone. But every time Vince brought up, it didn't go that way. Bret just was refusing to drop the belt. He just simply wouldn't do it. Meanwhile, he's got leverage over Vince because the arena's sold out in Bret's hometown. What's he supposed to do? Refund the tickets, change the opponent, and then Bret just refuses to do the job for that guy? The matches aren't real. It's a show. And I pick the winner. Sometimes I have to do what's called a screw job finish. And Bret, I'm going to screw you because in less than 24 hours, you're no longer one of my guys. But Shawn is. So this is the way this business goes. That's fine, and you guys should all understand it. I only offer you that type of opinion while telling you the story because I do hear many people say how wrong that was of Vince. It wasn't wrong of Vince. It's his show, and it's nothing more than that but a show. No producer in the history of the world has to tell the actors how the show ends. Maybe the milkman did it. Maybe the maid did it. Who knows? Film both conclusions, edit it up and put it out and make everybody buy a ticket to the theater and fight. Nobody has to know. So there was nothing underhanded there. There truly was not. There truly was not. It was a very tough situation. And it was a very creative fix done by Vince. Okay, great. But the story goes a little bit further because when this whole thing's done, Bret absolutely loses his mind. He wants everybody to know that he wasn't beat and he never surrendered in the sharpshooter. He actually on his own calls his hometown paper and does an article in the paper about how he was screwed. Now, you have to understand the diabolic nature. And I met Bret Hart. He's a perfectly nice guy. But the diabolic nature that a guy marking out for his own gimmick here, to the highest degree. What if he taps Shawn out in the sharpshooter? Shawn doesn't get to call the paper and go, oh, hey, by the way, I didn't actually submit. That was agreed upon in the back. The whole thing's fake. It's entertainment. It's pro wrestling. He's going to call the paper and say, oh, I was screwed? Screwed in what way? The writers told you before you walked through the curtain that it was going one way, and then after you walked through the curtain, they decided it was something else. Why do you think that referee's wearing an earpiece? Things get changed on the spot all the time. You just didn't like the outcome. That's the reality. You just didn't like the outcome, Bret. So you behaved the way that you behaved. But there was a little bit more to the story because when they went behind the scenes, Bret then went into Vince McMahon's locker room where Shane McMahon was. Other people were present, but Shane was included, and Bret punched out Vince McMahon. Swelled his eye up. I mean, you could see the marks. He punched him out. It was a huge deal. And everybody went along with that, and many people were there. And many people were in on this, including the referee, Earl Hebner, who to this day have never changed their story and just said, look, this is exactly what happened. And I realize we're the entertainment business and you can believe what you want, but this is just what happened. Over 20 years, they've never changed their story. So I think that we quite clearly have, as I laid out for you, exactly what happened, which is Bret refused to drop the strap and Vince had to pull the screw job, and he did it by putting Bret in his own hold. And before he had the opportunity to reverse him the way the spot was going to go, he had the referee call for the bell. The music played, the strap went on Shawn, and Bret left there a loser. Turned out a sore loser. But Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, he came out and said, not so fast. I'm tight with Shawn. I'm tight with all those guys. I wasn't there that night, but from what I saw and as a guy that understands the business, I'm not sure this whole thing wasn't to work. I'm not sure that the screw job itself wasn't the job, the show, the work, the storyline, everything, as a way of serving Bret Hart, letting him go over to WCW with a storyline. And I'm well aware that ended up fizzling and it bombed out and things weren't great for Bret over there, but that's not the point. Some angles work and some angles don't. It's either an angle or it's not. Scott Hall brought up a point. I think that was a work. He said there's just no scenario where Vince, in a closed door setting, is going to get punched by Bret and not return it. Oh, and by the way, his son, who happens to be pretty damn good at this too, was standing right there. You want us to believe they went into a room, shut the door, Bret got one punch, Vince took none, and Shane let the whole thing happen? I'm not buying it. This is Scott Hall's take. I will tell you full aware, I do think that Scott's wrong. I think that it was very straightforward. I don't think there's any conspiracy. I think it was a straight double cross, not a double cross. That's what I think. But the stories have changed. There is actual footage of Bret walking into that room with Vince, that door shutting, and then all three people, Vince, Bret, and Shane, at some point walking back through that door. And I think there was others in there as well. I can't totally remember, but I know those three came out. When Dark Side of the Ring told the story, it was a different story. It was that Bret was in the locker room, naked, with nothing more than a towel wrapped around him, and Vince walked in to see him, and Vince was going to squash us. Hey, look, Brett, Vince was just going to explain it to him. I did what I had to do. You wouldn't come to the table. Your check looks the same. I'm the boss here. You weren't playing ball. I had promised this to the fans. I cannot let you go over to my most fierce competitor with the belt. I just can't. I respect you. I like you, and let's get on with it. Instead, Brett took his shower, came back, threw some clothes on, and knocked Vince out. Brett said in Dark Side of the Ring, he knocked him out, and I quote, with a Mike Tyson uppercut. I saw Vince's face after Brett had punched him initially. In the raw footage that was taken, it is still out there for viewing pleasure. It's Vince's eye. Uppercuts don't hit you in the eye, they hit you in the chin. The story just doesn't add up. I also watched Brett go into the room. I also watched Shane and Vince walk out. There was no locker room and Brett naked and just him and Vince in there alone. There was none of those things. Does that mean that one of the shows just could have got it wrong? Yeah, it means one of them did. Bet your ass they did. I think it was Dark Side of the Ring because I saw the footage myself of the room that they went in. There was no locker room. There was no naked Brett behind a towel. There was none of those things. And it also wasn't just alone Brett and Vince. So yes, I think Dark Side of the Ring very likely just got it wrong. However, if you're a conspiracy theorist, of which I'm really not, but if you watch the piece and you listen to what Scott Hall said about questioning the Screwjob in its entirety and saying, I'm not sure this isn't just one of the longest standing works in wrestling history, he's not without a leg to stand on. I thought that Scott Hall gave his hand away a little bit, that he was going into business for himself and he was just looking to get attention a little bit when he said, you know what, I wasn't there that night and I've never asked Shawn about it. That was a little bit silly. Him and Shawn were pretty tight. Of course you would ask Shawn about it. You would have asked him 20 times about it by now. If I don't know Shawn Michaels, guys, if I had Shawn Michaels' number, I would have called him by now and asked him about it. I thought that was the one sucker's move by Scott if he was going into business and trying to bring some attention to himself and just take this in a different angle, which I thought was fun. I thought it was a fun storyline. It's a TV show. Why the hell not do it? But the sucker's play there was to go too far with the lie. And the too far was to say, I never talked to Shawn about it. Now you just cost yourself some credibility. But a damn good piece and an interesting point by Razor. And I will tell you, over time, the stories are not adding up. They're not told the same. They're not. That can happen with 20 years separation. But if you're a conspiracy theorist, you look for those little breaks and details. And I looked for it, and I successfully found it.